Welcome to this exciting tutorial on creating a 3D game using voice commands in Java. In this session, we will explore how to integrate voice recognition into a 3D game environment, allowing players to control the game using their voice. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to set up our development environment. We will be using the Java programming language along with the JavaFX library for graphics and a speech recognition library for handling voice commands. First, you need to ensure you have the JDK installed. You can download it from the Oracle website or use an OpenJDK variant. Once installed, make sure you have JavaFX library set up in your IDE. Next, we'll integrate a speech recognition library. One of the most accessible options is the CMU Sphinx library for Java. You can obtain it via Maven or download the JR files directly. Now, let's start creating our 3D game environment. In this tutorial, we will develop a simple game where the player has to catch falling objects using voice commands. The first step in our game is to set up the main application window with JavaFX. Let's create a new Java class called GameApp and set up our JavaFX stage. In this code snippet, we initialize our primary stage and set its title. Then, we create a scene with a light blue background. When you run this, you should see a simple window titled 3D Voice Command Game. Let's enhance our scene with 3D graphics. JavaFX allows us to create 3D shapes easily. We'll add a simple 3D box that will represent an object to catch. In this code, we create a red box with dimensions 50 by 50 by 50 and add it to our scene. You should see a red cube when you run your application. Next, we'll implement the voice command functionality. First, we need to set up CMU Sphinx for speech recognition. Create a new class called Voice Command Listener to handle voice commands. Here, we set up the CMU Sphinx recognizer by providing paths to the acoustic models, dictionary, and language models. The method recognize will take voice input and return the recognized command. Next, we need to start the recognizer in a separate thread so that it does not block the JavaFX application. Let's adjust the GameApp class to include our voice command listener. We created a new thread where we continuously listen for voice commands. When a command is recognized, it's printed to the console for now. We have a method handle voice command for future command processing. Now, let's implement functionality to control the movement of our box based on voice commands. For simplicity, we will use commands such as left, right, up, and down. In this method, we listen for the commands and move the box accordingly. For example, saying left will move our box 10 units to the left. Now, let's make our game a bit more interesting by adding falling objects. We will create a new class called Falling Object that will handle the creation and movement of falling items. This class creates a sphere that falls from the top of the screen. We use a timeline to update the y-coordinate of the sphere every 50 milliseconds, simulating gravity. To use this falling object in our game app, let's update our application to generate instances of falling object at random positions. In this updated method, we add a new falling object every second at a random X position across the width of the window, ensuring varied gameplay. Now, we want to implement collision detection between the box and falling objects. We need to check if the coordinates of our box match with the falling sphere's coordinates. Here, we checked each child in the route and looked for collisions with spheres that represent falling objects. If a collision is detected, we can process it as catching the object. We can call this check collision method on every update of the application. Let's add it to the part of the code where we update the state. Now we have a functioning game environment where 3D objects fall, and the player can use voice commands to catch them. To make this whole experience even more engaging, we can add sound effects. In this code, we load an audio clip and play it whenever the player catches an object. Ensure you have an audio file named catch.mp3 in your resources for this to work. At this point, you now have a basic 3D game that reacts to voice commands, has falling objects to catch, collision detection, and sound effects. To enhance it further, you can add score tracking, levels, or even a timer. For scoring, you can simply maintain a counter variable in your game app and increment it every time a player catches an object. This functionality updates the score variable and prints it to the console whenever an object is caught. You can also display this score in the game window. This gives visual feedback to the player by showing their current score on the screen. You can style the text and its position for a better aesthetic. As we wrap up this tutorial, remember that this is a foundational game. You can expand upon these concepts, perhaps adding multiple object types or voice commands for different actions. Finally, I encourage you to experiment further. Try to integrate different features such as levels, increasing difficulty, or even multiplayer functionality using network programming. Thank you for joining me on this journey of building a 3D game with Java and voice commands. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, and share your projects in the comments below. Happy coding!